Hello and welcome to this Serial Geek TV episode commentary for The Greatest Show on Eternia, an episode of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, produced by Filmation Studios. Quite possibly the most infamous episode of the series. For those that don't know, this is the episode that revolves around Skeletor trying to hijack a circus that is arriving on Eternia. Yes, the Lord of Destruction, the demon from another dimension, doesn't want people to have fun, and unless I'm mistaken, at one point in the episode states that he wants the circus to only perform for him at Snake Mountain. Yeah, it's an odd one. Definitely a standout episode of Season 2 for all the wrong reasons. But we'll get into that as this commentary proceeds. Here's the Season 2 intro of the three others share this secret image of Man-at-Arms, the Sorceress and Orko posing. Yeah, this episode produced in 1984, the 100th episode of the series in production terms. And what an episode to have that distinction. The Greatest Show on Eternia. The title card of this episode features an accompanying piece of music exclusive to this episode, so you won't hear that on any other title card, and probably with good reason. So the writer of this episode, as you saw in the title card, Ralby Goran. Now let's talk about Ralby. For those that don't know, prior to He-Man, Ralby was a writer on Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, the Croft Superstar Hour, some Hanna-Barbera shows, some shows for Geek. He even penned episodes of Three's Company. He even won an Emmy for writing Hollywood Squares. For He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, his first Filmation show, he wrote The Energy Beast, which is a great episode. The Shadow of Skeletor, which is a fantastic episode with such epic stakes and a lot of memorable scenes. The Greatest Show on Eternia, this episode, and Monster on the Mountain was his final episode of the series. Now, Ralby was primarily a comedy writer because, well, he's a very funny guy. When you meet him, he's a very funny guy. Prior to Ralby appearing on social media, going as far back as the early days of the He-Man and She-Ra online community, we're talking 95, 96, 97, this episode was often seen, even back then, as the worst of the series. Not in a hateful way, but in a, did they really just have Skeletor fired into the sky on a firecracker kind of way? Fellow He-Man and She-Ra fan Aidan Cross wrote one of the most hilarious reviews of this episode. He pulled no punches whatsoever. Oh, just here, listen to the sound effects.
Oh boy!
Uh-oh, looks like the rocket's in trouble.
As the circus train starts to malfunction, it reminds me of Chug-a-Boom, which was the Anthill Mob's car with personality from The Perils of Penelope Pitstop. So this next piece of dialogue from Cringe is wonderful. Listen.
But we saved the day yesterday and the day before that. Every day we save the day. Gee whiz.
It's Ralby Goran basically poking fun at the repetitive nature of the antics of the most powerful man in the universe and his fighting tiger. Also, Ralby really enjoyed putting the transformation sequence into an episode. Thus, this episode and another of his episodes, The Energy Beast, both have 3 transformation sequences, though we don't see the third in this episode, so does it really count? Actually, thinking about it, Ralby wrote 4 episodes and put in 2, 3 and 2, what's that, 10? 10 transformations in 4 episodes. I wonder if that's some kind of record. So yeah, He-Man and Battlecat are about to race into action. I'm not entirely sure how they're going to get from the ground up to a flying circus train, but somehow, I love He-Man's little gesture there. Yep, it's me. So yeah, the circus train is heading, as He-Man says, for Mount Eternia. Mount Eternia was invented by Ralby Goran in The Energy Beast. Initially it was placed directly behind the Royal Palace, and it served the purpose of the Energy Beast script really well, for the mountain housed the Energy Beast, the titular creature as it were, and it was a really great setting for the episode because the heroes venture inside Mount Eternia and then down into the core of Eternia itself, so it's a really fantastic setting. However, in this episode, Ralby brings back Mount Eternia. This time the direction shows that it's far away from the Royal Palace when compared to its location in the Energy Beast. Not only that, the funniest thing about Mount Eternia was that it was only ever in 2 of Rowby's scripts, as in no other writer of the series acknowledged it. Actually, tell a lie, if I remember rightly, I think King Tamask references Mount Eternia in The Time Wheel, which production-wise takes place 3 episodes before this one, but we don't actually see Mount Eternia, so boo. But yeah, Rowby really liked Mount Eternia, and it's a great idea for a setting. But sadly, just none of the other writers employed it at all, so it's like a random mountain that shows up in 2 episodes and then never again. So yeah, going back to Aidan Cross's review of The Greatest Show on Eternia, as I said, he pulled no punches whatsoever. The funniest thing is, when Rowby Goran began attending PowerCon, the He-Man and She-Ra convention, he was a very, very good sport about all of this. Rowby, with a smile on his face, kind of took pride at having penned this very infamous episode, and he was willing to poke fun at his work. I mean, that's the kind of individual he is, a very, very funny guy, very warm, just a great human being to be around. And when he met me, he talked about my review of his episode and even had me take a photo with him holding the page of my book with my review and poor rating for this episode. And Rowby is pulling a sad face, and me in the background kind of holding my nose as in PU. It's such a funny photo. Another great moment at PowerCon was when Rowby actually met Aidan Cross, the man who had shamed his episode. Rowby was genuinely delighted to meet Aidan, and the feeling was clearly mutual. They both posed for a couple of lovely photos, one of them being pissed at one another, the next of them smiling towards the camera. In short, the moral of this particular story, Rowby Goran is just an awesome human being. Now let's get back to slating the episode. So, there's Crackers the Clown. I'm going to go to the series Bible. Series Bible, not the series Bible. Imagine if Crackers the Clown was in the series Bible. The episode script. And I'll read you Rowby's description for the characters. So yeah, Rowby describes Crackers the Clown as a colourful clown with a big red nose and fuzzy yellow hair. He's tall and lanky with long skinny arms and legs and huge clown shoes. Although Crackers is skinny, he wears a baggy costume which has all sorts of goodies. Crackers is taller than anyone in our cast, if he would ever stand straight. However, Crackers has a funny posture, slightly bent at his waist, and his knees are randomly bent inward and outward, depending on his mood. Myrtle the Myrtlefant, a lovable creature who looks a lot like an elephant, but she has 3 trunks. Although she's a cutie, she also has great strength. One of her jobs is to help erect the big top. At one point, Myrtle is controlled by Beastman and she becomes somewhat terrifying. Amusingly, the script actually describes the cuckoo bird in its cast list, and she lives in Cracker's shirt pocket and springs out when the occasion calls for it. She literally has a big mouth. I did not know prior to reading the script that the cuckoo bird was female. You learn something new every day. Tom Cito did the storyboards for this episode, and I will have to feature them on the channel at some point because they are at times hilarious. This is also the episode in which Tom Cito challenged himself to put in the now infamous Prince Adam and He-Man stock laugh sequence in which he would tilt his head back. Tom Cito would go on to direct many episodes of She-Ra and did a fantastic job. Part of the new blood of directors at Filmation. This episode features my least favourite version of Orko. So some writers would write Orko like a child, some almost like a young adult, some as a very mature character. My least favourite is the childlike Orko. I understand why a child relatable character is important for a script, but sometimes I felt it undermined Orko, who was, known on Troller as Orko the Great. And as we've seen in numerous other episodes, it is possible to write Orko a little more mature. But I think for a circus episode, you have to write Orko this way. I don't think you can have a mature Orko in an episode like this because you need that kind of childlike excitement to get the point across of the episode that the circus is a very important part of this story. If Orko's just like, well, whatever, you don't really sell the idea of the circus in the episode. You need Orko to be that relatable character. I may be completely off base there, but that's what I'm believing.
Myrtle, what's going on?
Hey, there's evil in it, Beastman.
I should have known they were causing all the trouble. We better do something about this.
And here we see one of the most notable reuses of a certain sequence. In the Dragon Invasion, Prince Adam transforms into He-Man, and initially we see the shadow of Prince Adam stood there. On this occasion, we see the shadow of Prince Adam enter shot and unsheath his sword. It's a very cool visual and very surprising to see it used in this episode, although it's done well enough that it works in the sense that we don't need to see the full transformation at this point in the episode, not when Myrtle is about to topple the big top. Also, be sure to look at He-Man's expression as he says, "Now to give you the bounce." He kind of uses his finger to poing the spring, and also his eyes widen and he smiles. It's a really nice moment.
Stop it!
Now to give you the bounce.
It's a funny little, very little action scene, and this is Beastman and Evil Lyn's end in this episode. You see them in a few minutes being punished by Skeletor, but that's it for their involvement in this episode. But this one little scene has got some really nice touches to it. The previous scene at Snake Mountain, I mean, it's in keeping with Skeletor's occasional tone in the second season, but there's one little unanswered question. Skeletor, according to Evil Lyn's dialogue, requested that the circus perform at Snake Mountain, and now he's annoyed that they turned him down. So does that mean Skeletor wanted the circus to perform? I almost want to believe that he requested that the circus perform at Snake Mountain and then would capture the performers or something. Surely that's a more diabolical Skeletor kind of plot, rather than him wanting to be entertained by circus performers and jugglers and clowns, etc. I do like the premise of this episode in the sense that Orko just assumes that the circus is a fun place to work. It does speak to us as children when we have a more innocent attitude to life. Oh, it's all easy, it's all fun. I do wonder if this episode would have been better received had it had better animation. You look at episodes directed by Tom Tedder-Renowitz or Tom Cito, who I said storyboarded this episode. They would often put a lot of necessary visuals in order to get the story across. So if it was an action-adventure episode, they would utilise the right animators to work on those scenes to really get the action animation into an episode. With this episode, obviously it's a humour-based episode, and Crackers the Clown is animated as well as can be expected, but you think in the hands of a director like Tom Cito or Tom Tedder-Renowitz, would they have really excelled the animation and almost taken the episode to another level? Yes, the story would have still been the same, Skeletor wants the circus, but to see stronger visuals, I do wonder if that would affect our viewing experience. When you think of Sweet Beast Home, great story, great visuals, but what if the visuals weren't that good? What if they were almost like a very early season 1 episode of He-Man with very limited animation? I just wonder if that would, change one's viewing experience. Who knows? So yeah, Skeletor's not impressed, and it's a classic Skeletor line of, if I want something right, I'm going to have to do it myself. Skeletor wants that circus. That's how you end Act 1. And here we are in Act 2, and yes, of course, the first characters we see are Crackers the Clown and Myrtle the Myrtlefant. A Man-at-Arms has rejoined the episode. I guess he was contractually obliged to appear in more than one scene. And there's Skeletor. I love that Skeletor has his own less than subtle personalised tent. Here we are in the actual big top now, and we've got the Great Orlando and his wife Colette. Although she's not mentioned in the episode, in the script she is referred to as Colette. The Great Orlando is described in the script as a daring man on the flying trapeze. He's the star of the circus. Colette, the Great Orlando's partner, she's attractive and in great shape. I mean, you have to be to use the trapeze, right? Rowby, if you're listening, let us know in the comments where Colette comes from. And I mean the name Colette, not her place of birth. And so here, Orko and Crackers converse, and the little Trollon cannot wait to get started at the circus, still believing it's all fun, and soon he'll even see the Great Orlando doing his own laundry, like a normal, everyday Eternian. Here we see Orko attempting to give Myrtle a bath. There's Prince Adam laughing again. Tom Cito, why did you do that? I mean, the laughing with the tilting back of the head was seen by the Filmation storyboard artists as a piece of animation they really didn't enjoy using and tried to avoid it, but Tom Cito was obviously having a bit of a field day. Actually, the first panel for this storyboard, it's a joke illustration by Tom Cito. It shows He-Man in the chair of a movie star, like he's on set, with Orko floating next to him, and He-Man is yelling out in confusion the title of the episode, "The Greatest Show on Eternia?" ? It kind of shows you that right from the get-go they knew the kind of silly episode they were about to put into production. Here's the thing that will blow your mind. The high-pitched voice of Crackers, guess who performs that voice? Well, it's none other than He-Man himself, John Irwin. You can hear in certain moments when Crackers lowers his tone, the vocal tones of John Irwin. I mean, it should come as no surprise. John Irwin, during his time in animation, was a supremely talented voice actor. The storyboard illustrations for this sequence in which Skeletor sends Crackers away are hilarious. Tom Cito's drawings of Skeletor are just brilliant, almost comically simple, but they get the staging across. At some point I'll have to feature them on this channel because they would make for a very fun video. Actually, thinking about it, Tom Cito's boards for He-Man and She-Ra were always fun. You should see how he originally illustrated the Twiggets that appeared in She-Ra. They looked like reject Smurfs. So now Skeletor makes his presence felt, and all of the circus will have to pay. Although Skeletor does that classic villain thing, he announces where he sent Crackers the Clown. Why not just send him away and don't tell everyone that he's in Echo Valley? I should mention that Echo Valley is not the same as the Valley of Echoes that would appear in the later Season 2 episode, The Toy Maker. So yeah, here we see Crackers the Clown in Echo Valley. It's a great idea that he's in this canyon, as it were, and a very precarious situation. Will Crackers perish? Many would say unfortunately not. Interestingly, in the storyboard for this scene in Echo Valley, Tom Cito actually illustrates the setting in the sense that he shows the layout artist and the director where everything in this scene is in relation to one another. How the canyon, chasm, whatever it is structured, how far away Crackers is from the cliffside on which He-Man and Battle Cat are positioned. It's an interesting inclusion in the storyboard, and sadly I don't think it was as well followed as he had probably hoped. As you'll see, Crackers is saved. Hurrah! But the scene shows another rockfall, prompting the characters to run into a nearby cave, which we haven't seen up until this point. And even weirder, as the rockfall begins to come down, it's obvious that there's plenty of space for He-Man, Battle Cat and Crackers to race towards. So yeah, this scene is let down visually, even though Tom Cito really did try to make it work with his storyboard direction.
What's your plan? It's a long shot, but it's worth a try.
So now they're trapped in the cavern. If you look at that circus poster, you'll see that Crackers is actually in blue. That was his original colour scheme by Irv Kaplan, so there's a model sheet owned by Emiliano Santalucia, and you see Crackers in his original blue costume. But for some reason during production, and it would have been a somewhat 11th hour change, they changed his costume to yellow and red rather than shades of blue as it used to be. So yeah, the circus is cancelled, and the episode, that's where the episode should end. But oh no, we're going to get the big conflict in the big top. In a piece of dialogue removed, when the people are told that the circus has been cancelled, one woman with her family states that they have travelled all the way from the Forgotten Forest. When Orko asks where the forest is, the woman simply states that she has forgotten. That is very much a Ralby Goran piece of writing, a very comical moment. And here comes the most powerful man in the universe. So basically, He-Man and his friends have come all the way from Echo Valley underground. I mean, that's quite the entrance. You think a better entrance would have been to have He-Man and Crackers and Battle Cat emerge at the tent opening, not to come up through the ground. Good bit of animation there as Myrtle kisses Crackers. And now, the big finale. The animation here and the direction of this ridiculously comical battle between the most powerful man in the universe and the Lord of Destruction is really rather good. The animators and the director do a superb job of showcasing the character animation and quick movements that the scene requires in order to make it work. I can imagine that Ralby Goran was more than happy when he saw the finished episode, because sometimes a writer would be lazy and simply state in the script that He-Man and Skeletor duel on a trapeze, but not Ralby. He actually stages a lot of this action in the script, action that Tom Cito would bring to life in his storyboards. I mean, here's Skeletor, the Lord of Destruction, the demon from another dimension, on the high wire. And yeah, Skeletor bouncing up and down on the safety net, being laughed at by all in attendance, Compare this Skeletor to the Skeletor we see in Diamond Ray of Disappearance, the Time Corridor, the Dragon Invasion, etc. It's almost like a different character completely. I mean, this is Skeletor being overpowered by a circus. And yes, Skeletor decides to flee. This being can fire powerful concussive blasts from his hand. Why would he steer clear of a bunch of circus performers? But yeah, Skeletor runs out of shot, and we see that he's suddenly in a room full of firecrackers. So yeah, you're about to see one of the most infamous shots in the series. Don't get me wrong, it's bloody hilarious and done really well. And that is the end of Skeletor. He died. Imagine if this were the last episode of the series. Oh my goodness, the series just ended right there, with Skeletor utterly humiliated. Wow. In the script, Ralby comically inserts a joke in the direction of the script that was not essential for the production of the episode and was never intended to be seen by anybody. But after the scene in which Skeletor crashes through the poster, the scene direction unnecessarily states that 43 minutes later, the performance begins. It's like, we don't need to know that information. No one needs to know that information, but I love the fact that Ralby decided to include that in the script. So yeah, there we go, the most infamous episode of the series. I could make the argument that the episode isn't at fault for bringing the circus to Eternia. The circus arriving on Eternia doesn't necessarily need to be a comedy episode. I think the fault lies in the fact that Skeletor, the Lord of Destruction, seeks vengeance upon the circus because they turned down his request to perform. I think that is the moment. More than often, Skeletor was written as a comedic villain, especially in Season 2. But for him to initially desire the circus to perform at Snake Mountain, it just doesn't make sense to me for the character. If you want to see some awesome Ralby gore and He-Man material, then check out The Energy Beast and especially The Shadow of Skeletor. Those episodes are some of the best of Season 2. Really striking, entertaining episodes with a lot going on and big, big stakes, not just circus stakes. And we'll talk about Monster on the Mountain another time maybe. And that's the end of this episode commentary. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to like, share and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.